Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into India's power sector. It's the engine of our economy, but for decades, it's been stuck in a serious financial crisis. So let's break down why keeping the lights on is such a constant struggle.
Okay, so here's our game plan. We'll start with the sheer scale of the problem. Then we'll take a step back and see how we ended up here. We'll unpack the cycle of debt that's crippling the system, look at the government's big attempts to fix it, and then talk about a recent Supreme Court ruling that's been a total game changer. And finally, we'll ask, what's the real path forward? All right, let's kick things off with the big one, the core problem. We need to understand why the poor financial health of our power distribution companies, you'll hear them called DISCOMs, is more than just an industry issue. It's actually a threat to the entire national economy. So you might be wondering, just how big are we talking? To really wrap your head around this, let's look at the numbers. And trust me, they are absolutely staggering. Yep, you're seeing that right. 6.77 lakh crores. That's the mountain of accumulated losses for state-owned DISCOMs as of 2023. And get this, it's not getting smaller. It's actually growing by about 10% every single year. This isn't just a number on a page. It's a massive debt burden that's choking investment and holding the whole sector back. Now here's where it gets really interesting. You might think this is a problem spread evenly across the country, right? Well, not at all. It's incredibly concentrated. Over half, that's more than 50% of the entire country's power sector debt comes from just 3 states. That tells you something crucial. While the issue is national, the crisis is hitting a few specific regions really hard. Okay, so how on earth did we get into a mess this big? Well, a crisis like this doesn't just pop up overnight. To really understand the challenges we're facing today, we have to rewind the clock a bit. For a long time, we had these state electricity boards, or SEBs. You can think of them as complete government monopolies where electricity was often seen more as a social service than a commercial product. But over the years, there's been this slow, deliberate shift towards a more modern system, one designed for efficiency and private investment. The real game changer was the Electricity Act of 2003. The whole idea behind it was to smash those old state monopolies. They unbundled them, basically separating the companies that generate power from the ones that distribute it, all in an effort to bring in accountability, corporate governance, and a bit of healthy competition. But here's the twist. Even with all these massive reforms, a really nasty, vicious cycle of debt started to take hold, and it settled right at the heart of the system, within those newly created distribution companies. And this, right here, gets to the heart of the matter. You see, the DISCOMs are the weakest link in the chain. Their poor financial health creates a massive domino effect. When DISCOMs can't pay their bills, well, they can't pay the power generators. When they're broke, they can't invest in upgrading the grid. The entire system starts to crumble. Okay, a huge part of this problem comes down to a term you'll hear a lot, AT&C losses. So what is that? Well, think of it this way. It's electricity that's produced but never actually paid for. It gets lost, either technically through old inefficient wires or commercially, which is a nice way of saying theft, bad billing, and just not collecting the money. And if that wasn't enough, you've got this other monster, the ACSR gap. This is just a fundamental and frankly terrible business problem. Simply put, DISCOMs are consistently forced to sell power for less than it actually costs them to buy and deliver it to your home. And this chart, wow, it just lays it all out, doesn't it? It perfectly shows the core of the financial bleeding. Because of intense political pressure to keep electricity prices low, the money DISCOMs bring in, that's the revenue, never covers their actual costs. It creates a permanent, structural loss that just keeps growing.
All right, so the problem's pretty clear, right? So what has the government actually done about it? Let's look at 2 major and very different attempts to fix this mess.
You can really see how the thinking on this has evolved. The first big scheme, UDAY, launched in 2015, was basically a financial painkiller. It was designed to give immediate relief by having states take over the debt. But the newest scheme, RDSS from 2021, is much more like major surgery. It's trying to fix the underlying diseases that caused the problem in the first place. This table breaks down the difference perfectly. You can see UDAY was a temporary fix. States took on the debt, sure, but because the root problems weren't solved, the losses came right back. RDSS, on the other hand, is playing the long game. It links financial help directly to performance and pushes for massive tech upgrades, like smart meters, to create real, lasting change. Now, just when you think you've got the whole picture, a new player enters the scene, and it's a big one, the Supreme Court. It has acted as a totally unexpected catalyst, forcing a new level of financial discipline on the entire sector.
So the court went after this really clever but problematic accounting trick called a regulatory asset. Here's how it works. When a regulator doesn't want to approve a politically unpopular price hike, they let the DISCOM record the money they lost as an asset, basically an IOU. It's a formal, official way of kicking the can down the road.
And that can they were kicking, it got incredibly heavy. We're talking 1.5 lakh crores. That's the value of all these IOUs piled up across the country. It's a huge burden because it's money that exists on paper, but not in the bank. So you can't use it to pay your bills.
So what did the court do? Well, they didn't just suggest a change, they mandated it. They put a hard deadline on this whole practice. They're forcing regulators and DISCOMs to face their costs head-on, right now, instead of pushing them off into the future. The era of kicking this particular can down the road is officially over.
All right, so with the Supreme Court laying down the law, what does the road ahead look like? What's the actual path to a healthy, genuinely sustainable power sector in India?
It really boils down to a three-part strategy. First, go all in on technology, especially smart meters, to get accurate data and stop the financial leaks. Second, we need to empower our regulators to be truly independent, so they can set tariffs based on real costs, not political pressure. And third, we have to reform subsidies, making them more transparent and efficient by giving them directly to people who need them.
And really, if there's one single lesson to take away from all these years of struggle, it's this. You can't just throw money at the problem and hope it goes away. That's a temporary fix. You have to fundamentally fix the broken system that creates the losses in the first place, and that means better tech, better governance, and a whole lot more discipline.
So, the path forward seems clear. The Supreme Court has forced everyone to get serious, and schemes like RDSS are providing the right tools. But the big question, the one that really matters, is this. Is there enough political will to see this through, to make the difficult, and sometimes unpopular choices needed to build a financially strong and sustainable power sector for India's future? That remains to be seen.